I've been collecting vintage Star Wars action figures for pretty much my whole life, but it didn't always start out as collecting. Throughout this next series of videos, I plan to talk about stories I've had collecting these figures, and some stories about playing with them as a kid, and even some stories that involve the crossover between playing with them and collecting them. So you may be wondering, how does a 20-some-year-old kid acquire Star Wars figures from the 70s to play with as a kid? Well, they were my dad's figures, and so when I was born, my grandma thought, well, may as well have these get played with, and so she brought them down. And boy, was that an awesome decision, because I loved Star Wars, and the fact that I already had toys ready to go to play with, what more could a kid ask for? But you may be thinking that that was a bad idea, to give a kid these old toys that are fragile and they could be worth money, but the thing is that they were already played with by my dad, so they didn't really lose any more value, maybe a little bit. I did lose a couple, and I lost Ben Kenobi's lightsaber, as some of you probably noticed, but the thing is that I was actually very careful while playing with the toys because I really liked them, and I knew never to turn their heads because I knew they would break. I knew they weren't like my new figures that I had. And I also, when I got older, refurbished the X-Wing after my brother actually broke it. So I was very careful, and I really cared about the toys as well. I was kind of like Andy from Toy Story, you know. I really cared about these toys because they were very important to me as a kid. The story of how I acquired these, not too interesting. The story of how I realized that they were valuable definitely is. One day I headed down to my local comic books collectible shop, and I was looking at their Star Wars figures, and I saw a Snaggletooth, a regular Snaggletooth. And I was confused because, as I said, these were my childhood figures. This was my Snaggletooth. So when I saw the regular one, I was like, wait, what's going on? Why is he short and red? You know, I asked the owner of the store, and he looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like I was kidding, and I knew what a blue Snaggletooth was, and I'm trying to mess with him. But eventually, he realized that I was being serious, and he told me. He didn't try to rip me off or anything, which is great. He's a nice guy. He told me that that's a rare figure, a rare variation, the Sears Cantina set version, as he explained, and I went home, looked it up, and realized I've got a couple really, really rare figures, which is really cool. But it's just really interesting because I actually played with these as a kid, and it's not like I really played with them too much. I mean, what would happen is maybe if I was playing the Cantina scene, I would set him up with all the other, with like Greedo, you know, and Hammerhead and all that, and Walrus Man. But I wouldn't have like played with him a lot, like, you know, my Luke figure. Like, I played with this Luke figure all the time. This was probably my most played with figure, either that or this Luke here, this X-Wing pilot Luke, because this was my favorite toy of all time, the Kenner X-Wing. I also collect vintage Sonic, Mario, and Pokémon collectibles, so you'll definitely be seeing videos about that in the future as well. Thanks for watching.